Hello YouTube. Dave Buffett coming at you again on something a little different than my last two videos. But I feel another important part of my gear, my EDC stuff I carry, and this is one of my favorite watches. Also gonna do a little preview of my next video here. So that's the guy we're going to talk about next video. I have some very strong opinions on that knife, and we'll get to that one in the next one. But right now, the focus will be on this watch. So, if you watched my last two videos, you've noticed, you probably noticed me looking away from the camera and some clicking sounds. Well, more my first one, not this last one. I actually remembered this last video to set it before I start recording. And I like this watch because it's a little easier for me to manage time. I know it's silly, right? That's what a watch is used for. But in all reality, I do prefer a analog watch. Well, I have a couple preferences in watches. This one doesn't meet all of them, but for what it does, I love it. I got this at a Fred Meyer. It's a generic watch, no name on it. I got it on a generic NATO band, just to give it some flair. The original straps on it were terrible. There were these thick, ugly rubber bands on it that I just hated. And I felt like a NATO band would be a nice little touch and something a little more comfier, something that won't rot and stink like shit after a while and fall apart over time. So yeah, the NATO bands are really nice. I really like them. Again, these ones are generic, just some random off of Amazon. And so what I was saying with one of my favorite features of this watch, the clicking sound from the first video would actually be this bezel here, this little ring around the outside. It twists around, and when I'm at work, when I'm trying to time out my breaks or my lunch, I used to set a timer on my phone, but in all reality, I'm lazy. I don't use my phone for a lot. I like a watch. I hate pulling out my phone, trying to fumble with it, turning it on, and I feel like it's unprofessional pulling out my phone at work, trying to turn it on just to check the time or date. So with that being said, that was one of the first things I'm not a big fan of with this watch. I'd really prefer if it at least had the date on it, the day, but for functionality I really like it. So with this, you get the Japanese quartz movement. So it's very old school, very movie like, with the tick, tick, tick. I don't know if the microphone picks it up, but you can actually hear the tick. But yeah, as I was saying, my favorite thing is this bezel here, is I can actually use it as a pretty precise timer. If you see this little triangle here, if I move it to the minute hand and set that as a start point, if you see around here 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, so on and so forth, I could actually use this as a timer. So I can click this as my start point. When it moves to here, that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And so if I'm don't have my setup like this, if I'm standing at my backdrop and trying to do a video and trying to keep track of time, I could actually just set this bezel and try and keep it within 10 to 15 minutes. And that's one of the biggest things I love about this watch, is the bezel. The bezel makes this watch so nice, especially like I said, if you're trying to keep track of time, if you're trying to time yourself for anything, If you're trying to keep a pace marker, a watch with a really nice bezel is a really good way to go. This one is a single swing bezel, so this guy only moves counterclockwise, and so the reason for that is so it'd be less likely for you to bump it and move it out of place. They do have ones that are dual movement, so you can move it clockwise, counterclockwise, but I really like the counterclockwise only, because it keeps things really nice. I think I only paid like $15 for this watch, and I love it. The quartz on it's really nice. It does scratch a little on the easy side. If you see right there, right above the hour hand, there's a little bit of a mark there. But it's holding up alright. It's doing okay. I feel like the NATO band just really sets it off. Gives it a really personal touch. And I love it. So the NATO band's really easy to assemble, put on. On the back side here, see if it gives us any info. So it gives us a model number, the battery, the movement. As you can see, it is water resistant. I haven't really tested that out aside from washing hands. I haven't really bathed with it or showered with it yet because I just don't like wearing those in the shower. So if you see my little thing there, that's a little spent casing. This one is a Hornady Critical Duty 9mm spent casing, and I just use that to prop things up in the background. The steel casing, again, really nice offset, really nice contrast, and I think it looks cool. But anyway, so yeah, this is a really nice watch for the money. The movement's good. It doesn't, I set it to my work time once and I've never had to touch it again. I always try and keep my bezels set to 0 until I actually use it, so that way I'm just not, I don't know, whatever, it's just my preference. But yeah, so I've had this guy for at least 4 months. It's holding up really nicely. The steel's really nice on it. It isn't really tarnishing or scratching up too bad. Like I said, the only formal wear would be this little itty bitty scratch just about in the center. But it's alright. The bezel's still locked on tight to the frame. Especially with how much I use it, it's still pretty tight. The clicks are still really nice and clicky. Again, especially for using this thing 3, 4, 5 times a day. It's holding up really nice. The polish on it is really nice. If you see, these little grooves on the inside are polished, and the rest of it is kind of a brushed steel satin. Really nice look to it. And yeah, and that's a look at one of my favorite watches, one that I use on a daily basis. Oh, last thing to point out, they're terrible. They don't really hold a charge, but they do have the luminous hands. So if you do charge it up with a flashlight or something like that, in my opinion, it's all kind of useless because none of the back is luminous, just the hands. So you'll know where the hands are, but you don't really know exactly where the time is on the watch, right? Oh, and then you do get the military time under the main hours, which I don't really use, but I guess it's kind of cool. It's kind of nice to have. And yeah, so yeah, if you want one, I don't know if they sell them on Amazon. Probably do. You can find everything there. But I got mine at Fred Meyer. You can probably pick it up at Walmart. If you want a really good, inexpensive watch, and you're interested in the bezel and trying out something with the bezel, this would definitely be a good way to go. Well, alright, internets. You have a great evening. You have a good day. Have an amazing week. This is Dave Buffett signing off.